Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going deep on something that's super relevant to your UPSC aspiration.
This is exciting.
It
What
is.
is it?
It is India's National Critical Minerals Mission.
Ooh, that's a hot topic.
It is.
It's in the news a lot these days, and it's a potential game changer for those of you who are prepping for the UPSC exams.
It is. So we are going to be looking at some sources today
All
and
right.
kind of going through everything and giving you a rock-solid understanding of like the mission's goals, strategies, potential impact.
Awesome.
So,
Well, let's get started.
yeah,
So what is the NCMM?
NCM.
It's essentially India's plan to secure a stable and sustainable supply of raw materials that are absolutely essential for modern technology and industries.
Okay, so like why should a UPSC aspirant care about this?
Think about it. India's economic growth, energy security, its transition to a low-carbon future. All of these hinge on having access to these critical minerals.
Yeah, that's true.
And not to mention, it directly links to several topics in your syllabus,
Oh, really?
like resource management, industrial policy, and even international relations.
Okay, so like reading those dry government reports suddenly feels a lot more relevant now.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that this mission goes beyond just saying we need these minerals. It outlines a comprehensive strategy to achieve self-reliance, from boosting domestic exploration and mining to investing in processing and recycling technologies.
From the source, National Critical Minerals Mission, latest news. It seems like the government is really throwing its weight behind this with a massive financial commitment.
Absolutely. The government has committed over 34,000 crore. That kind of investment signals that they're serious about achieving the mission's objectives, and for you as an aspirant,
Right.
understanding the nuances of these objectives is crucial.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the key things that the NCMM is trying to achieve?
Well, one of the most crucial objectives, and I think this is particularly relevant for the UPSC mains exam, is reducing India's import dependence. Currently, we rely heavily on imports for many critical minerals, making us vulnerable to global supply chain disruptions.
So that's where the whole strategic stockpile idea comes in.
Precisely by building up a national reserve of critical minerals, India can cushion itself against potential price shocks or supply disruptions.
That's smart.
It's a way of ensuring we have a buffer in case things get volatile in the global market.
Right. But it can't be all about stockpiling, right? The mission also emphasizes the need to ramp up domestic exploration and mining.
Absolutely. India has significant untapped mineral resources, and the NCMM aims to unlock that potential. It calls for expedited mining approvals and increased exploration efforts by organizations like the Geological Survey of India.
Now, this is where I start to think about the environmental implications. Increased mining activity, even if it's for critical minerals, can have a significant ecological impact.
That's a valid concern, and the mission acknowledges that. It stresses the importance of responsible and sustainable mining practices. In fact, there's a lot of discussion in these sources about leveraging technology to minimize environmental damage and ensure that mining activities are conducted in an ecologically sound manner.
So it's about finding that balance, isn't it? Meeting our needs for these critical minerals while also safeguarding the environment.
Exactly. It's a classic example of the kind of complex policy challenge that you're likely to encounter in the UPSC exams. Think about it. You've got economic development, technological advancement, and environmental sustainability all intersecting.
Yeah, it's all starting to connect. Now, before we move on, I want to touch upon something that really blew my mind when I was going through the source material. The sheer scope of what's considered a critical mineral.
Oh, yeah, it's really eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not just talking about obscure elements buried deep in the earth. These minerals are everywhere in our smartphones, electric vehicles, renewable energy technologies, even defense systems.
Yeah.
For example, the source mentions lithium, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements as being particularly crucial. What makes these minerals so critical in the first place?
Well, it's a combination of factors. First, there's the rapidly growing demand driven by their use in essential and rapidly expanding industries. Second, many of these minerals have limited and often geographically concentrated supplies, making access a strategic concern. And finally, they can be technologically challenging to extract and process, requiring specialized knowledge and infrastructure.
So it's not just about how much of a mineral exists, but also who controls it and how difficult it is to get it out of the ground and actually use it.
Precisely. And this is where the NCMM gets really interesting. It aims not only to secure access to these minerals, but also to develop India's domestic capabilities in processing and even recycling them. This could transform India from a mere consumer of raw materials into a key player in the global value chain for critical minerals.
Wow, that would be a major shift. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's unpack the NCMM's specific strategies for achieving this. The source specifically, the key implementation measures section, mentions some pretty interesting initiatives.
That's right. And I think it's worth taking a closer look at those initiatives because they highlight some of the key challenges and opportunities that India faces in this sector.
Okay?
So,
Sounds like we're setting the stage for a deeper dive into the NCMM strategies and their potential impact. But before we do that, let's take a quick pause.
yes, a pause is always a good idea. It gives everyone a chance to process all this information and reflect on its significance, especially for those of you gearing up for the UPSC exams.
Exactly. This isn't just some abstract concept. It's real-world stuff that could directly impact India's future and, by extension, your preparation for the UPSC.
And remember, all this insightful information comes straight from TH. Make sure you check them out for more in-depth coverage of this and other important topics.
So grab a cup of chai, jot down some notes, and get ready for part 2, where we'll unpack the government's specific strategies for making the NCMM a reality. We'll be back in a flash.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were discussing how the NCMM aims to transform India's position in the global critical minerals landscape. Let's delve into how the government plans to achieve this ambitious goal.
Okay, so having a vision is one thing, but actually putting it into action,
Yeah,
that's a whole different ballgame.
absolutely.
And the source specifically, the key implementation measures section,
Right.
it lays out some pretty concrete steps.
It does. And these steps highlight the interconnectedness of different policy areas, something that's always emphasized in the UPSC syllabus. For example, the mission talks about amending the Mines and Minerals Act of 1957.
Oh, that sounds like something straight out of a polity textbook.
It does, doesn't it?
So what's the significance of this amendment?
Well, this amendment enables the auction of strategic mineral blocks, which is a big deal. It aims to attract private investment, both domestic and foreign, by creating a more competitive and transparent bidding process.
So it's about making the sector more attractive to investors and encouraging them to put their money into India's critical minerals industry.
Precisely. And this ties into another key measure, streamlining the approval process for mining projects.
Okay.
The mission recognizes that bureaucratic hurdles can be a major deterrent for investors.
But isn't speeding up approvals potentially at odds with environmental concerns? After all, mining could have a significant ecological footprint.
That's a crucial point, and one that's sure to come up in the UPSC exam. The mission addresses this by emphasizing the need for rigorous environmental impact assessments and the adoption of sustainable mining technologies.
So it's not just about digging up minerals as quickly as possible, but doing so responsibly and with minimal environmental damage.
Exactly. And the mission goes beyond just mining. It talks about developing downstream industries like processing and refining these minerals.
Okay.
This is where India can really add value and move up the global value chain.
Instead of just exporting raw materials, India can become a hub for producing high-value finished products.
Precisely. And this is where the focus on research and development comes in. The mission calls for investing in innovation, both in terms of extraction technologies and in developing new applications for these critical minerals.
So it's about creating a whole ecosystem, isn't it? From mining and processing to research and innovation, India wants to be a leader in the entire critical mineral sector.
Exactly. And this is a great example of how the NCMM aligns with India's broader economic and technological aspirations. It's about moving away from being a low-cost manufacturing hub and towards becoming a knowledge-based economy.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the global context.
Right.
We've been focusing on India's domestic efforts, but the critical minerals landscape is inherently global. How does the NCMM address this?
That's a crucial question. The mission recognizes that India cannot achieve self-reliance in isolation. It talks about forging strategic partnerships with other countries, especially those rich in critical mineral resources.
So it's about building alliances, securing access to resources, and potentially even collaborating on research and development.
Precisely. And this is where India's foreign policy comes into play. The NCMM could become a key driver of India's diplomatic engagements, shaping its relationships with countries like Australia, Canada, and those in Africa.
Wow. It seems like the NCMM has the potential to be a game changer, not just for India's economy, but also for its global standing.
Absolutely. It's a prime example of how domestic policy and international relations are often intertwined. And this interconnectedness is something that UPSC aspirants should always keep in mind.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from amending laws and attracting investment to promoting sustainable practices, and forging global partnerships.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
But there's more to explore, right? Especially in terms of the potential challenges and long-term implications of this mission.
Indeed. And in part 3, we'll dive into those very aspects, analyzing the potential hurdles and the broader geopolitical ramifications of India's pursuit of critical minerals.
So stay tuned, deep divers, because the conversation is about to get even more intriguing. Welcome back to the deep dive now in this final part. We are going to be talking about the potential long-term implications of the NCMM for India.
Yeah, we talked about what it is and how it works, but now
Yeah.
it's time to tackle so what?
Right.
What are the potential long-term implications of this mission for India?
So this is where it gets exciting,
Yeah.
especially for a UPSC aspirant who's looking to understand India's
Yeah.
evolving role in the world.
Exactly.
The NCMM isn't just about boosting domestic production.
Right.
It's about positioning India as a key player in the global
Absolutely.
critical minerals landscape.
It is.
So we're talking about geopolitical implications, strategic alliances,
Yes.
maybe even a shift in the global balance of power.
Imagine a scenario where India, instead of being reliant on other countries for these essential resources, becomes a major supplier itself.
Okay.
This could fundamentally alter trade dynamics, particularly in regions like South Asia and the Indo-Pacific.
So it's like flipping the script.
Yeah.
Instead of being dependent, India could actually become a source of strength and stability for other countries seeking to secure their own critical mineral supplies.
Yes, that's the idea. And it ties directly into India's ambition to become a global leader in technology and manufacturing. Having a secure and sustainable supply of these minerals is crucial for achieving those goals.
But let's be realistic. There are already some big players in the critical minerals game. Can India really compete with countries like China, Australia, and Chile who are already established giants in this sector?
It won't be easy, that's for sure.
All right.
But India has a few advantages up its sleeve. First, its massive domestic market provides a strong incentive for investment and development. Companies see the potential for growth in India, and that's attractive.
So India's own demand for critical minerals becomes kind of like a bargaining chip,
Yes.
giving it leverage in negotiations and attracting global players to invest in its domestic industry.
Precisely. Second, India has a long history of mining and mineral processing expertise. We're not starting from scratch. We have skilled, labor-established institutions and a growing research and development ecosystem.
And third, and this is a point that I think resonates particularly strongly in today's world,
Yeah.
India's commitment to sustainable development aligns with the growing global emphasis on responsible sourcing and ethical supply chains.
That's a crucial point. Many countries are looking to diversify their sources of critical minerals, moving away from suppliers who may not share their values when it comes to environmental protection and labor standards. India, with its focus on sustainability, can position itself as a reliable and ethical partner.
So it's like a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
India gets to secure its own supply chains while also contributing to a more stable and responsible global critical minerals market.
It is, and that's something that could resonate well with UPSC examiners who are looking for candidates who can think holistically and understand the interconnectedness of economic, environmental, and geopolitical factors.
Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of potential here for India to emerge as a major force in the critical mineral sector. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the potential challenges. What are some of the hurdles that India might face along the way?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is simply the scale of the ambition. The NCMM is a massive undertaking, and it requires significant investment, technological advancements, and coordination across multiple sectors and government agencies.
So it's not just about like digging up minerals.
Right.
It's about building a whole ecosystem from scratch.
Exactly. From mining and processing to developing downstream industries and attracting foreign investment, and that requires careful planning, efficient execution, and a consistent policy environment. Another challenge is the need to balance economic growth with environmental protection.
Right. I can see how that could be tricky. We've already talked about how mining can have a significant impact on the environment.
Yes.
And with the NCMM's ambitious targets,
Right.
there's a risk that environmental concerns could get sidelined in the pursuit of economic gains.
Absolutely. That's why it's crucial for India to demonstrate its commitment to responsible and sustainable mining practices, not just for the sake of the environment, but also to maintain its credibility as a reliable partner in the global critical minerals market.
So it's about finding that sweet spot
Exactly.
where economic development and environmental sustainability go hand in hand.
Precisely. And for a UPSC aspirant, this is a classic example of the kind of complex policy challenge that often comes up in the exam. You need to be able to Analyze the trade-offs, understand the different perspectives, and articulate potential solutions.
Yeah, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive, and I feel like I have a much better understanding not only of the NCMM itself, but also of its potential impact on India's future and its role in the world.
Here's very interesting.
So for our listeners who are prepping for the UPSC, remember that this topic is about more than just memorizing facts and figures. It's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture, and understanding how seemingly technical issues like mining and minerals are actually deeply intertwined with geopolitics, economics, and even ethics.
And don't forget the source of all this valuable information is Be sure to check them out for more in-depth analysis and insights.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow UPSC warriors. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of your knowledge.